Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining today's IoT Challenge for Utilities webinar. We want to give it just 2 more minutes for a few folks that might be running just a bit late. So if you wouldn't mind holding for 2 minutes, and then we will start the webinar accordingly. Thanks for your attendance, and we'll be right back. Great, looks like we have some new arrivals. Hi, this is Scott. We're just waiting a couple minutes here to get started. We're expecting a couple more folks to join, and then we'll get going with the IoT Challenge for Utilities webinar. So just please hold for 1 more minute, and then we'll start. Thank you. Okay, great. Let's get started. So thanks everyone for joining. We welcome you to today's IoT Challenge for Utilities, How Wessex Water is Preparing for Alexa's Call. We have a good amount of content to share with you. Should be about a 45-minute runtime. Hopefully towards the 35-minute mark, we'll be pausing to take some Q&A towards the end. With us today is Peter McKean, both CEO as well as Managing Director of Synthetix. Also, Peter will be covering Clive's commentary as well as his content for Wessex Water. Unfortunately, Clive was unable to join us. Not to worry, we'll still be going through all of the material from him. He sends his apologies and regards. And then speaking as Scott Swope, I'm Head of Strategy, Alliances, and Channels for Synthetix here in North America. So with that said, Peter, you have control of the screen now. If you could, let's get started. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Scott. Yes, as Scott said, we're going to cover a couple of topics. The first is some real-world lessons learned from Wessex Water's digital deployment. So I'm going to fill in for Clive and talk a little bit about digital strategy in as much detail as I'm able to. We're also going to cover off a little bit about Synthetix and what we're doing in the IoT field and how we're able to extend our offering across multiple channels and what that means for the utility sector. And finally, Scott will be covering off some of the general utility trends and Internet of Things considerations that are pending and relevant. So finally, we'll have some questions and answers. So if we move on to the first topic, and as Scott said, unfortunately, Clive was unable to attend. We're going to cover off the business technology impact that IoT is having on the utility sector, customer service. So a little bit about Wessex Water. It's a regional UK water and sewage business serving 1.3 million people. And in total, it has coverage of 2.7 million customers across the southwest of England. It's a very heavily regulated company by Ofwat, the regulator for the water business, and in particular utilities in the that are regulated by Ofwat or Ofgem. General utilities in the UK are heavily regulated, and also they need to handle complaints particularly well. If they don't, the the fines that could be levied by the regulatory body can run into the millions of pounds. So it's a really handling complaints well, handling customer inquiries well, so they don't turn into complaints, is a really serious business. So Wessex Water has made massive investment in digital channels, and the kind of services that they've launched include intelligent searchable FAQs on their website. They have an agent knowledge base in their contact center as well that's driven from the same data source. That is very key to them is using the same source of data across all of their channels rather than having different silos, which Clive quotes as a single source of truth, which is a lovely phrase that we've written down and intend to reuse in all of our marketing. They've also got a live chat system that enables them to escalate if a knowledge base can't answer a question. And the kind of new digital investments they're making include Facebook Messenger to handle some of their regulatory requirements. If you're in the water business, you'll know all about PR19. And also Alexa, and we'll talk a little more about that in a minute. So Wessex's focus on customer service, and in particular offering a choice of channels to customers, has really paid off with improvements in their SIM scores. You can see that their overall SIM score, they're actually second from the top in the table that's on the screen at the moment. So they're really doing very well indeed. And even more impressive, they are #1 for customer satisfaction. So this focus on digital has been extraordinarily successful for them. And in general, we have found that utility companies are very forward-thinking and really do want to reach out to customers across a range of digital channels and really are prepared to make an investment in that. So of all the sectors that we deal with at Synthetix, and we do work across a whole range of sectors, we have found that utility companies in particular are very enthusiastic about launching new digital channels that help them to reach out to customers who aren't necessarily picking up the phone or sending an email. So for Wessex, the quick access to consistent information that they've been able to launch has helped to maintain and improve their SIM score. There's about 5,000 customers a month now use the knowledge base to self-serve answers rather than contact the call center. And even the call center is now handling about 1,000 live chats a month, which is a very, very convenient and highly rated channel with a resolved query rate above 97%. So that's really a mark of customer satisfaction with that, and it's an extraordinary rate. Speaking to Clive about this, he said, well, you know, if you want to be completely accurate, it's possible that it may dip slightly to about 96%, but we're expecting it to rise again. I said, hey, let's not sweat the detail, Clive. So what's coming up for Wessex? In June 2018, Wessex will launch searchable FAQs via the Synthetix platform on Alexa. So they're very keen to reach out to customers and to pitch these new channels to them, to give them access that will be convenient. Soon after that, that'll be followed by Google Assistant as well. So they want to get coverage on all the different voice assistant channels. I don't think we can do that with Siri yet. It doesn't really have the capability, although Apple did make a few interesting announcements yesterday at their developer conference. So Wessex will launch an Alexa skill, and it'll give customers access to hundreds of relevant questions about the business, contact details, for instance, opening hours of contact centers, how to get a water meter, what to do if you have a leak. So emergency queries, you'll simply be able to ask Alexa. Key to this deployment is their ability to manage the content in Alexa. And rather than build it as a walled garden, what they've done is work from the Synthetix knowledge base that has all the FAQs in a channel-independent repository, so that when you publish, you can publish to the web, you can publish to the contact center, and you can publish to channels like Facebook Messenger or Alexa as well. So there'll be a certain amount of data that will be common to all those channels, a certain amount of articles or FAQs that will be common to all those channels. And then there'll be some information that's channel specific, because you should really adapt your content a little bit to to suit the channel you're deploying it on. In the case of something like Alexa, it's spoken answers, so you really want to keep them quite short and punchy if you want to keep the attention of your audience. And the ability to publish over from one source to multiple channels in Wessex's view cuts the cost of knowledge management and also ensures that key consistency, that single source of truth that they were referring to. What they're going to do, it's not the finished article, it never is. They're going to capture customer feedback based on the initial launch and use that to develop a roadmap for further voice assistant features. The kind of things that they expect customers will ask about might be integration to a middleware that might tell you, for instance, the date of your next bill, and how much it's going to be, how you can pay it, that type of thing. And even venturing as far as doing payment processing through maybe technology like Amazon Pay in order to make the Alexa skill experience as functional and personal as they can. Synthetix is supporting Wessex Water in this venture. We are able to deploy Alexa capabilities within just a couple of days up to our award-winning knowledge-based technology. The tech is powered by a conversational, best-in-class knowledge base that uses AI techniques like natural language processing and machine learning to deliver the best possible answers to customer questions. It's some of the technology we've been developing for 17 years. And by gosh, it certainly feels like it. And another key feature of the Wessex offering that is very, very important to them, and it is cited as being fundamentally important to how they will build their digital offering in the future, is comprehensive feedback. So learning about what customers are saying, what they're looking for, how they're rating your service, and being able to then adapt your CX strategy based on that customer information. And as Wessex have pointed out, there is a new customer experience measure that the regulator is putting into place called CMEX, Customer Measure of Experience. And this redefines the way in which water utilities are rated, taking into account customers who maybe don't make proactive contact on a daily basis with a water company, so reaching out to them. And it will actually measure the customers who don't contact you and what they think about you as a business. So this means that moving beyond things like SIM scores, Wessex is looking at Net Promoter Score, NPS, and other kind of feedback channels and initiatives like potentially Trustpilot that will help them to raise their profile and deliver excellent customer experience through 2019 and beyond. So that is a little bit about Wessex Water. So what I thought I would do is to give you a bit of background on Synthetix, our company, what we do, and provide a bit of texture to how we support utility firms like Wessex Water. And in fact, about 8 other water utility firms in the UK. So we happen to be very strong in the sector, and we have a strength in utilities in general, working with lots of firms in the field. So we've been a leader in online customer service and conversational customer experience for about 17 years. Conversational customer experience you might know better as chatbots or virtual agents. So that's conversational CX is one of the key terms that's now used to define that sector. We were founded in 2001. We have a presence in the UK and the US, which I'm sure you guys have guessed, as we have both Scott and myself on the line. We're really an enterprise business, so we work with utility firms, with governments, and with very large brands generally, and we've deployed over 200 instances of our suite of software over the last 17 years. And that's dominated by, as we said, AI-powered omni-channel solutions. So things like live chat and our knowledge base and virtual agents and so on that use our core AI experience to deliver kind of best fit answers to customers in a very scalable way. We're a multi-tenant business, so that means that we're kind of modern software as a service company. We're fully invested in the cloud, so we're not on premise. So we're using a very modern approach that makes this really easy and quick and simple to deploy. So it really reduces the costs involved in deploying online customer service architecture to companies. And a few hygiene factors where ISO 9001 for quality and ISO 27001 for information security accredited, which is very important to us, that we're a credible business that has been doing this for a long time with a lot of great clients. And not only do we really know our stuff, but that you can trust us with your data security, and you can trust us to deal with you in a quality way. And even Gartner thought we were cool, which is fantastic. I always knew it, but it took them a little longer to catch up. A little bit about us by the numbers, what we do. So we answer about 10 million questions via our core artificial intelligence algorithms per annum. So that's about 4 million customers that we serve. We do about 1 million web chats as well on our platform. And we have 15,000 contact center agents across the UK and US live using our software. A little bit about delivering customer service across multiple channels. So our natural language processing technology that is core to what we do and is the backbone of all Synthetix products, including those that Wessex Water are using, is a tech called Sentience AI. So that's our brand for knowledge base. And it's pretty key to delivering searchable knowledge and conversational experiences. So it's quite flexible. It powers chatbots, it powers FAQ search, it powers agent knowledge bases as well. It's inherently channel independent, which enables us to very quickly extend the technology across a channel like Facebook Messenger or voice assistants like Alexa with minimal fuss for clients, and also maximizing their return on investment. The kind of things we're now doing for specifically utility clients include FAQ search. These are new developments, so a lot of these are already live with customers, but what are we actually working on today for utility customers? FAQ search, API driven for their websites, live chat deployments, Facebook Messenger deployments, callback systems, virtual agent chatbots that we're deploying for a utility business as well that will act as a kind of concierge on the website. And Alexa. So a lot of people are very interested in Alexa at the moment, and it offers a lot of potential. I think everybody's still feeling their way, but it's coming, and we're helping our clients to dip the toe in the market and get as much data and analytics back as we can to make some conclusions on its feasibility. Here's an example of our chatbot that is being implemented by a utility business. So as you can see, it's launched. It's taking the name of the customer. It's acting in a chat style, and it's giving the customer a number of options like reporting a leak or understanding your bill or moving home, paying your bill. These are all very common queries, but you can just as easily express what you want by asking a straightforward question, and you'll get a straightforward answer. And if the bot can answer your question, it'll escalate you to either a callback or a live chat, perhaps. Here's an example of a bot operating on Facebook Messenger as well, which is at this point surveying the customer to deliver some feedback on PR19 objectives, and can also be used to query using our natural language routines. And finally, it's very hard on a PowerPoint to show you Alexa because it's obviously an audio medium. But here's a little shot from the developer console that shows asking questions in practice and how Alexa can deliver answers back to the customer. So it's very important if you are looking into your options for IoT deployment or online customer service in general that you choose the right platform and vendor. And we have a couple of perspectives that you might want to consider on that. One, as Clive pointed out to us, that single source of truth, the ability to write once and publish to multiple channels. You know, having more than one channel doesn't have to mean silos and additional costs and complexity, it can be completely manageable. And it's very, very important if you want to scale customer service rather than multiply your cost base without much benefit. Make your decision on business goals, not the latest fad. There is a tendency, we get a lot of calls from customers we might have asking us can we deploy the latest and greatest thing? But really, we always suggest they go back to KPIs and a business case rather than potentially make a big investment in something they don't know will pay off. It's very important that your platform can connect to middleware, CRM, telephony architecture like Genesys, CRMs like Salesforce. You need to understand the roadmap for your vendor and where they're going and how they're going to plug into your systems to make those customer journeys more personalized and serve them better and be able to access things like billing information. So integration is a really, really important use case. And a key perspective really for us is that return on investment really isn't just about contact deflection anymore. It used to be. You go back some years when you were asked to justify the cost of a technology, you would frame that in terms of the number of contact deflections that you could make with it. You know, the number of inbound emails or telephone calls that you could stop that were avoidable. And the requisite savings from that. So, and that's all fine, and it's still a use case, it's still there, but with technologies like virtual agents, we can be a lot smarter than that. And a lot of the business cases that we put together now aren't about contact deflection. They might even be about driving contact through the right channel and increasing contact, depending on the business case. But very much is about qualifying the customer who comes in, engaging with them proactively very early in the customer's journey through your online presence. And once you find out what they're there for, driving them through the appropriate channel. That might be the web, but it might be telephone, that might be callback, that might be live chat, but really assisting them to get what they need. And that could include upsell and cross-sell that will enable you to drive new revenues that way. So this is really a new frontier for technology, for this kind of technology where we can start to generate new revenues, not just deflect contact and have an ROI saving that way, which is really, really exciting. This slide just visualizes some of these points, really. Choosing the right platform is about experience, it's about integration, about omni-channel capabilities that we've covered. Full service vendor, what do we mean by that? Well, it's not just fire and forget, sticking something on your website, and then the next time you hear from us is at the next billing cycle. It's really being able to assist you the whole range of services that will help you to sculpt and learn from your digital deployments. And of course, the importance of accredited operating standards and compliance, like the ISO accreditations we referred to earlier. So that is my part finished, and I'm going to hand over to Scott to take us through a couple of utility trends.
Yep, great. Thanks, Peter. If you could just advance to the next slide.
Here we go.
So assuming that most of you are in the utility industry, I'm sure you're seeing the same transformation that we are for IoT and all the different areas it impacts. I just wanted to give some examples of what we are seeing, some of the things that Wessex Water is planning for around 3 different areas on this slide. So customer, obviously increased expectations around digital. If you know IoT, if you use a smart thermostat at home, you know that there's profound impacts on the way that a customer views a utility and the things going on with that utility. The technology piece of things, obviously, is what we're discussing today. And there's a host of things that aren't really in the Synthetix portfolio, right? That has an impact around smart metering, things going on around remote monitoring of homes, of businesses and their use of energy, and then finally the overarching data aspects of it. So if I think about those 3 things, the next slide, Peter, if you could, led me to some thoughts around use cases and some things to plan for. And really, this is for you as an attendee to think about what the impact might be from either contact origination being from an Amazon Alexa device, or potentially contact origination being from social and Facebook Messenger. So some of the things that we've been working with Wessex Water on is what do we perceive, or what should we plan for from a call perspective, from a voice perspective, when it's originating from an Alexa device. I think if you use Alexa at home, it's very easy to query and to ask questions that, in the old world, you would have to pick up the phone and actually, call a contact center for, potentially start a chat session for. Well, with Alexa, we believe that is going to drive volume at a much higher rate into the contact center. And so if you can simply ask Alexa to call your utility and dispute a potential billing overage, consumption overage charge, we think call volumes will spike. And I think if you're in utilities today, you may already be seeing that in your contact center. So impact point one would be your voice self-service, or your IVR. And so having a structured self-service environment to handle robotic calls coming in, or Alexa calls that are being facilitated for a customer to be on the phone, is one thing to think about. Then the second impact point, obviously, is going from voice self-service to the contact center agent. And so to the extent it's routed to a billing person, to a person responsible for answering questions about your utility bill, as you know, I'm sure everyone on this call knows, the cost to serve is very high on that front. And so we'll talk about this in a minute, but that having that impact point be stopped at the voice self-service piece with some underlying knowledge that will power, perhaps, intelligent answers in the self-service area, we think will help deflect some of the cost to serve. I mean, potentially what could happen is an influx of calls come in. It not only hits your voice self-service, it hits your contact center live agent queues as well around billing. So one of the risk, or one of the things to plan for that we see, is increased call volume on the voice self-service side from Alexa, and then obviously to the live agent side on tier one for just general inquiry on billing. So that's the first use case. The second one to plan for that we see is obviously with social. Facebook Messenger, again, provides ease of use for the utility consumer, allows them to express outages and complaints in a more public forum. I'm sure you're already experiencing some of this. I mean, social's been around for a while now, so that's probably nothing new. But again, the cost to serve that we see is, in different departments here. I mean, in most utilities, at least here in the U.S., I'm speaking for the U.S. market, maybe the same for the U.K., it's usually a corporate communications person that mans the Twitter and/or Facebook accounts, and then sometimes that's routed to the contact center afterward. Again, anytime you have that level of human interaction, it gets expensive, but in this case, we have a different channel, if you will, and a different silo potentially of information to solve the matter. So corporate communications might not have the same access to knowledge in order to answer the consumer's question, the utility customer's question, so it's routed to the contact center. So both of these would, to me, from the use case perspective, they increase exposure for the utility. So thinking about that increased exposure, what would we do, or what would we suggest to reduce risk, to resolve that? If we could go to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about, some of the things that we're planning for, not only with Wessex Water, but also with some of our other utility customers. So right now, I would say, and Peter, feel free to chime in here. I mean, a lot of the different avenues that we're looking at are around either a virtual agent or potentially a bot. And so for IoT devices coming in, there's what we consider to be a layer of AI presence. That could be a very intelligent conversational virtual agent that has what I would consider to be a significant amount of corpus, and the corpus is intelligent responses. It's very conversation based. For Facebook, and if you think about Messenger, the text is limited, and social in general it's limited, and so a lot of times all it is more of a common FAQ. So it's a limited response in that manner. But at the end of the day, all of these things that we have from a response perspective, or how to reduce risk, or to think about from a knowledge perspective, is in most utilities that I work with on a day-to-day basis, the knowledge is in disparate locations. It might be in SharePoint, it might be in a billing system, it might be in a CIS. And so obviously if you've been in utilities a long time, you know the Customer Information System acronym. And so we can't power anything to address the front line without a consolidated architecture. And that consolidated knowledge management core that we call it, and that Peter has alluded to as the single source of truth, it's no different in the bot or in the IoT world. It's just going to get more complex, right? And so without this, it's difficult to build conversational interfaces. It's very difficult to build routing structures and intelligent responses if you don't have what we would consider to be what are the right ways to respond, no matter what the question is, no matter what the channel is. Synthetix has been doing that for a long time, with chat, with email, with voice, with web self-service, with SMS. And so I guess the underlying thought process around this, what we're helping transform Wessex Water is, it's not much different than what we've done in the past. The key here is empowering these conversational beings, which could be a virtual agent or a bot, to be on the front lines, where not so much of that is getting to the contact center agent. Hopefully we can deflect, we can become more intelligent, and we can answer more questions in an automated way so that influx of contact coming in isn't too much, or the cost to serve doesn't skyrocket. And my hope is that as we look at Alexa, and obviously as we look at other voice-enabled platforms, that the contact center responds in a way that we can address, and that we can deflect some of the live agent potential costs to serve that I think utilities will encounter. Peter, we've got some time here. I didn't know if there were other things that you wanted to add on, just from an architectural perspective or functional perspective, or even best practices. If not, we can go to Q&A.
Well, I mean, absolutely. Just to back up everything that you've said, Scott, that single source of truth is really important. So being able to serve your different channels from the same source, and an FAQ system and a virtual agent are in the face of it quite different, but actually we use the same technology to drive both of those. But as you mentioned, a social channel like Facebook Messenger is quite simplistic compared to the kind of rich content that you can deploy on the web. So you have choices to make that when you do want to reuse your content over multiple channels, about targeting the lowest common denominator. For instance, as it happens, a channel like Alexa and a channel like Facebook Messenger, while one is audio and one is effectively chat style written, they have an awful lot of the same attributes when it comes to the length of inquiry that you might, the length of article and the tone of the article that you might be putting in. So you can really reuse that content that you're developing for voice assistants across social channels very easily as well. And you can have a core of articles that you drive across all your channels that are in that format and are kind of tailored for the lowest common denominator. And then, you can have some really rich channel-specific data that you use across FAQ systems or virtual agents, and in the contact center for agents as well, a superset of data that might have things like email templates in them, and customer letters and PDF documents and so on as well. So what we try to do is to give you the flexibility with your knowledge management to be able to effectively serve all of those channels and refactor your content for it in a simple and manageable and cost-effective way as possible. And I think if we have to define the core purpose of Synthetix, basically that is it. We do a lot of things, but at heart we're a knowledge management business, and our DNA ensuring that you have one pot of data, one pot of truth across all your channels, which we believe to be absolutely the best approach to help you drive business efficiencies and improve your customer experience. So what I'll do is I'll progress to the next slide, which is our Q&A. So Scott, I know you've been compiling customer questions as we've been talking. So would you like to delve into that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Peter. And just so everyone knows, there is a Q&A panel inside of the GoToWebinar that you're in. Feel free to post questions if you haven't already. We have a couple here. We'll start with those, and then we're obviously open to take more as time allows. So, Peter, first one has come in. This was during your portion of the session. Is it seems like many queries coming in from Alexa or other devices will be to discuss or maybe even dispute bills easily or with less thought. Can you elaborate on how this can be automated or handled best?
Right. Well, that's a great question. It isn't always the case that an automated channel is the best way to handle a dispute or a complaint. Automated channels are great at handling the long tail of common queries that you get. You know, the kind of 80-20 rule applies here, where there's an awful lot of common information that really aren't best handled by contact centers. But when you have, for instance, something like a bill dispute, if you have something where a customer maybe can't pay a bill and needs to discuss that with a human being, the role of digital channel, in my view, is to escalate that person to a human agent or a human-assisted channel as soon as possible. That might be through arranging a callback, it might be through a live chat, it might be providing a telephone number or an email address, depending on what kind of contact channels the brand can support. You know, we had a use case with a utility business that we worked with a couple of years ago, where a customer came on via chat and had some difficulty paying a bill. They said they couldn't pay. And when the agent suggested a channel shift to voice, the customer said, I can't. I will cry if I have to call you. So it was clear to us that a channel like live chat, for instance, which we can also enable over platforms like Facebook Messenger, as well as just from your website, are, while they're still very personal channels and you still have that human element, they're complementary to voice. There is, if you like, there is a certain level of additional anonymity that a customer has by coming in over something like chat that is subtly different to interacting via voice over the phone, and can provide them with a little bit of security, enable them to ask a question that maybe they otherwise wouldn't have been able to call up and ask about. So that's a great way of reaching a proportion of customers that you otherwise wouldn't get. And in our polling that we do when we survey customers at the end of channels like chat, we found that about 13% of customers, when asked, say they would otherwise not have contacted the brand. So, I mean, that's extraordinary, really. It means that digital channels like chat, like Facebook, are ways of reaching out to customers that otherwise you simply would not get access to. But to me, it's crucial that you don't shut that customer down into an automated channel, because if you're really looking to gauge customer satisfaction, corralling them into a channel where they're never going to get the answer that they need in some cases, in a minority of cases, is absolutely the wrong approach. And escalating to a human being is absolutely the right approach. And that's really the Synthetix perspective.
Okay, great. Here's another one that's come in. So if a contact originates via social or an IoT device, could you elaborate on how we deflect initially to self-service? So assuming we might transfer to a live agent when the time is right, you know, how would we do that? And is it contextual? Is it seamless?
Well, I mean, that's a difficult one to answer because every use case is different. But with that principle of not shifting customers where possible, what we try and do is to deliver, for instance, a kind of a self-serve experience where we can answer common questions over the channels directly. So with something like Facebook Messenger, we might put you into an FAQ channel first, where you can ask a question, and if you then If that question cannot be answered by the automated channel, we might give you a website link, but more likely we might suggest that you just type your query, and it then goes into whatever the contact channel is. So we have a contact manager ourselves called Contact Cloud that can handle multi-channel contact from customers over channels like chat and email and Facebook Messenger. But we can also route that. We're not precious. We can send queries to other platforms as well, whether it might be a Salesforce inquiry or a Zendesk inquiry or some such platform like that through a simple integration. So I think the key message here is that where possible, we don't want to channel shift. We want to serve the customer on the channel that they have chosen to interact with us on, and we're respecting their choices when we do that. And I think that's important.
Great. Thanks, Peter. Another one we've just received. As a utility, we tend to be a little conservative in adoption of new tech. What should our planning horizon be for IoT?
Okay, so there was a couple of messages that we delivered in the webinar here, one of which was to build your case for IoT as a business case. Slightly conflicting with that, we also said that occasionally dipping your toe in the water is a good idea, and those ideas may appear to be in conflict, but with someone like Wessex Water, there isn't really a business case for Alexa on day one at the moment. It's a learning exercise. So the fact is we can deliver that channel at low cost. Wessex Water has already made an investment in a knowledge base. So really all we're doing is enabling that knowledge base and the associated analytics across the Alexa channel. What's very important is that the customer feedback we collect is shown as coming from that channel and not just going into a massive pot. They need to know how effective Alexa is versus the other channels that they're running knowledge across and FAQs across, or bots or whatever. And they need to know what customers think of it and collect that feedback. And that will pretty much help them to derive a roadmap. So it will help them to derive a business case. So really, it's a very low-cost way of saying, I've already made this investment in knowledge. How can I leverage that to do some learning about how utilities can utilize a channel like Alexa? How can we find out what it is that customers want, and how can we then execute on that? And actually, at the moment, if you look at the Amazon store, you'll find very, very few utility customers, whether it be water or electricity or gas. You'll find very, very few in there at the moment. So really, this is virgin territory. I think that, you know, for Wessex, dipping their toes into the water here will, metaphorically, will enable them to derive a solid business case for Alexa and drive it forward from there.
Great. Thanks, Peter. Okay, that's all the questions we have received thus far. Just wanted to open it up to any more before we close the session. Any further comments, questions? Okay. Peter, thanks so much. We haven't received any further questions. We appreciate everyone joining today. We'll be making this webinar available online via the Synthetix website, and we look forward to talking to each of you in the future, and thanks for attending. Peter, thanks so much for the presentation.
Oh, yes, and thank you, Scott, for your presentation as well. And yeah, we hope that we've given everybody some interesting points to have a think about, and that we've resonated with some of the issues and challenges that you guys have in your business. And so, as Scott said, we look forward to hopefully talking with you in the future. And thank you very much for your time.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.